Today on Locked On Rockies, there were a lot of questions surrounding Charlie Blackmon going into last year, but now it feels like the Rockies can give him a proper send-off because, let's be honest, even in an injury-shorted season, Charlie Blackmon earned that extension.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 24th day of October in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot. That's what we do around here, is talk about Rockies baseball each and every day. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where your subscription is the easiest way to help the show grow. And for all those out there that have tuned in and make us your first listen every day, really, really do appreciate that. And I really, really do appreciate you for tuning in. Your subscription, like I said, best way to help the show grow. And it means a lot to me. Puts a smile on my face. I need to clean up the old. It's just I've been total just let it rock when it comes to my hair and stuff. So I gotta eventually clean that up. But you still put a smile on my face when you tune in. Today I wanted to embrace my inner mountain man look because we're talking about the mountain man himself. Charlie Blackmon is the Rocky in review today. We'll be talking about him and the impact on the team, what he did this season. Did he earn that extension? As you heard in the cold open, spoiler alert, I think he did. We'll dive into all that and more, but first, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And one of the things that I feel about Charlie Blackmon right now and how I feel about just how everything kind of ended with Charlie and how the season ended with Charlie and the injury and everything, I just feel so much better about Charlie Blackmon. I feel better that we know he can still contribute. Even if if he can mimic what he did this year, even if it's in a role where he can play throughout the whole year, he's going to impact and influence the Rockies in the right way. And we mentioned this a little bit with our conversations talking with Skylar Timmons and Evan Lang there in the couple of episodes we've done with them, is now we can give Charlie Blackmon a little bit more of a send-off. Now we can operate a little bit more underneath a mindset of where Charlie Blackmon is at and the role that he can fill on this team. With the defensive issues and the defensive concerns, it really was, can Charlie Blackmon still carve out a spot in the lineup? And simply put, Charlie Blackmon was an effective offensive contributor and someone that is clearly a huge part of this team. And again, the stats aren't the flashiest and they're not the best overall, but he still was able to he still managed, even with their almost played in 100 games this season, was able to reach game 1,500 that he's played in and got almost got 300 and just under 360 at bats, 100 hits in that time. And 24 of those were doubles, 3 triples, 8 home runs for 40 RBI. And here's one of my favorite parts about Charlie Blackmon's offensive line: 39 walks to 55 strikeouts. The Rockies desperately need someone like Charlie Blackmon, especially at the top of their lineup. He is someone that has demonstrated that isn't going to be someone that's going to strike out as easily and someone that's going to go down so quickly on strikes. And he's someone that's going to be able to draw walks. I hope that this is something that he is going to be able to instill on the young guys, and it's something the young guys are able to take and learn as they're on Charlie Blackmon's team and working with him. Charlie Blackmon does have a lot of Todd Helton-esque qualities that we really that are a benefit and a benefit for this club. And that includes, like I said, the ability for those extra base hits and to do it his way. It's not There's nothing objectively pretty about what Charlie Blackmon does. His running style is ugly. His swing's a little bit ugly. The way he plays defense is ugly, but it all still works, and it's still working now. Charlie Blackmon and Chris Bryant did have a similar amount of at bats this year, and the comparison is pretty damning. I mean, Charlie Blackmon had 60 more at bats than Chris Bryant this year, but across the line, other than home runs, Charlie Blackmon was better in every statistical category there was, and not by much, but 30 more hits in those 60 more at bats. So it's still batting an extra 500 on those extra bats that Blackmon was getting, something that you're not necessarily confident you could say Chris Bryant was going to do. A couple of stolen bases in there, and here's the kicker. Why is Charlie Blackmon coming back next year, and why can we feel confident about him being in the top of the order still? He's still someone that contributes overall on offense. Here's how he finished the year. His batting line, 279 batting average, 363 OBP, a slugging of 440, an OPS of 803, and an OPS plus of 107. This is he was someone that was one of the contributors still to a meager Rockies offense. And I know that might not be much, but his hits still at 100, he still was fifth in hits on the entire team this season, even with missing 60 games. And that and compared to, there's only two veteran players on the Rockies team that had more hits than Charlie Blackmon this year. It was Elias Diaz and Ryan McMahon. Blackmon had more hits than Jurickson Profar, Brenton Doyle, Randall Grichuk, Chris Bryant, Ilaris Montero, Harold Castro, CJ Cron, Alan Trejo, Brendan Rodgers, Mike Moustakas. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Obviously, he also appeared in more games than a good chunk of these. Charlie Blackmon is still in the top 10 of appearances for the Rockies and games played for the Colorado Rockies last year. But it's that sample size that matters, and it's that key look that key fact that he's still a top 5 contributor in this team on this team. So when we ask ourselves, did Charlie Blackmon earn his extension? The answer is yes, because Charlie Blackmon still contributed positively for this team, still was someone that is made for that DH role right now for the Rockies, and someone that can go out and now be celebrated the way he deserves to be celebrated. And I want to talk more about why he deserves that celebration, and why him coming back could be a key catalyst in the potential success for the Rockies. Again, I mean, teams had quick turnarounds and teams had veterans leading the way. Charlie Blackmon is someone that can still be a member of that, be a contributing member for the Rockies. And if he gets more opportunities and can be in a situation to help the Rockies be, break the funk, break the mold next year, he's going to lead the way doing it and going to be a valuable resource there. Let's keep talking about Charlie Blackmon. Let's keep talking about the impact. Let's keep talking about the legacy here, all on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. But before we move on to segment number 2, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel has you covered as we get even closer to the World Series. You don't want to miss out on all the action at FanDuel.com. Make your postseason debut with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Yes, that's right. It's not too late to make your October debut. Join FanDuel today and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to create your new account. Then you can get in on all the action from the first pitch until the final out. Bet on everything from strikeouts to home runs to who will win the game. And if you don't want to wait the whole game to get a W, well, predict what will happen in the next at bat with quick bets. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. Step up to the plate this postseason with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot. Hello, welcome. I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Rockies talk. Been following this team my entire life and been bringing you this pod for over 3 seasons now. We're talking about the importance of Charlie Blackmon, and we're talking about him still being a contributor to this team, even though he had suffered the injuries and was going through it. Charlie Blackmon finishes the year with a 1.4 WAR in those 359 at-bats. That is good for 4th on the team, tied actually with the Rockies all-star Elias Diaz. And only one veteran player had finished the season with a higher WAR than Charlie Blackmon for the Rockies, and that was Ryan McMahon. Ezekiel Tovar and Nolan Jones finishing above Blackmon on that list. This is obvious. Now we get to go and instead of sit and question the Charlie Blackmon blockade of outfield or this, we get to say Charlie's final. I mean, realistically, I think this will be it or it with the Rockies. I think that his legacy is cemented. And now this year he gets to go out on his way, or potentially gets to go work his way onto a contender. I think the Rockies are going to be put in a pretty hard spot if they're going to look at Charlie Blackmon post 2024, especially as you're navigating the back end of the Bryant deal. You have Bouchard and Doyle and Veen and Jones all in there looming for outfield time as well. Michael Tolia down there as well, who also, a few of them could be mixed in with that DH. So right now, 2024 is still the right time to have Charlie Blackmon. It still bridges the gap and still gives you veteran depth and leadership at the top of your batting order and for your clubhouse. So he's going to be able to, I think we all can kind of operate a little bit more with, we saw how much potential was still left there on the field. And now we get to enjoy it. Now we get to go and kind of, as Rockies fans, feel a little bit more like we can do the finale, do the send-off. And for the Rockies, if Charlie Blackmon is contributing again, and if you have already discussed or already kind of know that the future is set of after 2024, you're not necessarily set up to continue that relationship, which they might be. Maybe they're doing 1-year deals as they continue to see how Charlie Blackmon's health and performance looks. But you could potentially trade him at the trade deadline to boost some things, and Charlie gets to go and finish off his career chasing the ring. But above all, the Rockies have brought back someone that is truly a Rocky to his core. We've talked every time I've talked about Charlie Blackmon, I've talked about this. But it just, everything that he brings to the field, his appearance, his mindset, his philosophy, everything works for Rockies baseball. And so this deal, and still committing to playing him, makes sense. I mean, this is a guy that was has still earned his right to be in the conversation. And as someone that playing a full season, I think is going to contribute on a better level. I think maybe you see some dips in some numbers, but you're going to see that RBI total go up. You're going to see that I think Charlie Blackmon could hit double-digit home runs again next year. The guy still hit 24 doubles. He had 5 triples. He led the Rockies, well, tied actually, I should say, with Brenton Doyle with 5 triples. He was still top 5 on the team in doubles hit this year. He is still contributing, still someone that is a factor, and he's someone that makes the Rockies better. He's someone that will help this Rockies team put themselves in a better position to win next year through his ability to still perform and his leadership. I really do think that him in the locker room with these guys, I do think that combo. We've heard a lot about Bryant, but I know that Blackmon is the consummate example of someone to look at when it comes to approach, discipline, and preparation. I mean, he continues to perform. He continues to succeed. He continues to be someone that makes an impact for the club. And he's just so easy to root for. He's just, I mean, everything that you love to see, you see in Charlie Blackmon. I mean, it's I don't know. I just he's so sentimental, I think, to me as well. It's I still think he's earned that right. He's earned that right to be someone we just enjoy and someone we look at and celebrate for what he means to the Rockies and celebrate for what he can still do. I'm acting like I know he's on such a downward trend or what have you, but he hasn't given up. You know, he hasn't coasted off into a spot where he's never seemed like he's fully on just cruise control. He's never had a season really where it feels like he's regressed, sure, but he contributes. He's still impactful. He's still a game changer. I do firmly believe that. And the best and really overall, like when we're talking about this, is I've kind of nailed all the philosophy stuff down. I think of what's to enjoy about Blackmon is it's not an overcommitment, and he knows his role and he knows the state of the Rockies. He knows where the team is at. He wouldn't have signed, he signed that deal at the end of this year after going through this season. So he's aware of the situation. He's aware of what's going on and the role of the Rockies and the potential players that are coming up and things there. But he still sees something there. He still sees the importance. Didn't even sniff free agency. He certainly could have. I mean, there certainly teams would have been somewhat interested in bringing Charlie Blackmon to their roster. Like we looked at again, some 300 at bats was still contributing. Still someone that shows that he can get extra bases, has enough speed in the tank to get doubles and triples and a couple of stolen bases. Proven that he still continues to be a dynamic leadoff hitter for the club. So, all in all, while you can't overcommit to Charlie Blackmon and you can't continue to expect him to be the all-star dominant player that he was in the past, if we get 2023, a full year of healthy Charlie Blackmon, and he performs like he did in his time last year, then that's okay. Then that's all right. That is a fine means of production. If Charlie Blackmon can go out and bat nearly 300 and get a beef up in RBI and hits, a couple more walks, and help this team and help his team score and generate more offense, then that's a win. And above all, you're not sandbagged, you're not saddled with extra years. And the best part for Charlie, when you look at it, for him, he does have incentives in the contracts, which are going to, which adds that extra incentive. Now, extra $2 million. He'll make $15 million if he receives 500 or more plate appearances. So that's an extra, when you compare that, that's about 140 more at-bats than he did this year. And when you have Charlie Blackmon in the game, you're not necessarily blocking too much. But 2024 is really the last year you can really afford to have Blackmon and Bryant in there if you're continuing to look at some of the young guys that you have coming up in the roster. Because DH is now pretty solidly in 3 players' hands next year. Bryant, Blackmon, Montero. And I'm okay with that. If Charlie Blackmon, and now the best, and going into this year, as we're looking at the differences from last year, we don't have the question mark as much of how much does Charlie Blackmon want to be a DH? How much can he really make the adjustment? Is he going to want to make those adjustments? Charlie Blackmon is bought into being a DH now. And he's still someone that you can play some outfield if you need to use DH for someone else. And if you need to use DH to get some other players in the game. And I think Charlie Blackmon is going to have more rest games or DH games or moments where he's not in the lineup every day. But it might be hard to keep him out of the lineup every day if he's able to do what he did. I mean, I think one thing to especially look at there too, last 30 games for Charlie Blackmon, 265 batting average, 344 OBP, a slugging of 389. Takes on those 4 stolen bases in that, getting most of his stolen bases in that final stretch. 9 RBI, a home run, 30 hits, and 113 at bats there. And even on the smaller scale, really finished the year strong by batting just about 300 over the final 2 weeks of the season. 339 OBP, a slugging of 500, 4 RBI in that time. Still high strikeouts, but that's just about everybody for the Rockies as well. And it finished cold against Minnesota, though, in the last 2 games. Goes 0 for 8 to finish the season. But all in all, Charlie Blackmon was a positive asset for the Rockies. He's someone that makes the Rockies better and has another season to further cement his Rockies legacy and help the Rockies out in a season where they really need a guy like Charlie Blackmon in there to continue to bridge this gap. And if the Rockies are in a point where they're rebounding and playing better ball next year, I'm really confident that Charlie Blackmon is going to play a key factor or a key role in that. Let's answer an obvious question here and wind down our conversation on Charlie Blackmon, looking big picture overall, and wrap things up for the day here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. We'll do all that and more coming up in segment number 3. But before we do that, game time. They got you covered with your last minute tickets and the lowest prices, and that's their guarantee. You can get the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with Gametime. Find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. And my favorite part about Gametime, you'll get to see the image of where you're going to see it. When I've used Gametime, which I have used Gametime multiple times, not only to get to the All-Star game, but one of the biggest concert events of the year for me, you get to see the pictures of where you're going to sit, and that brings tremendous peace of mind for me, especially when I'm looking for that great deal. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot. That's what we do around here each and every day. It's talk Rockies baseball right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Rockies podcast. Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, best way to help the show. Subscribe there. So one thing too is as we're not only do I think Charlie Blackmon is going to have his moment on the field, and we're going to be able to celebrate that. I think now we get to kind of really appreciate Charlie Blackmon, the Rocky, and the legacy that he has implemented and left on this team. It's without a doubt that the Rockies will be retiring his number. There's just no doubt in my mind that Charlie Blackmon is someone that is going to have his number put right up there, and I think it will be announced pretty quickly after the end of the season. Charlie Blackmon is the second longest tenured Rocky ever. He is played his entire 13-year career with the club, and that's only behind Todd Helton's 17 seasons. Through and through, forever and always, Charlie Blackmon is a Colorado Rocky, the Colorado Rockies. I mean, again, big bearded mountain man that loves fishing, that loves to mash, and loves to show up to the yard and take care of business. That's what we want to. That's the embodiment of Rockies baseball, or what it should be, in my mind. And it was clearly demonstrated this year that Charlie Blackmon is not only a big factor in the clubhouse, but he's a big factor on the field as well, and still shows that he can be a positive contributing player and someone that earns himself a nice little chance at a nice little contract, one more extension, and an incentive and some incentives to be a better player, be a healthy player, be someone that can be someone that stays on the field and helps out the Rockies. 500 at bats. I mean, that's a big step up. That's something he's going to have to work on, and we'll have to see as we go through the year, because you're going to have to navigate that logjam a little bit and the issues with DH. But I don't feel a lack of confidence in Charlie Blackmon going forward. I don't feel a lack of confidence in the extension. I don't feel a lack of confidence that Charlie Blackmon is someone that I just rambling at that point. I am confident in Charlie Blackmon. That's how I should say that. I like this deal. I like this extension. I like the role he played on the team. And it wasn't great all the time for the Rockies, but I like that he still contributes, and he still is an impact, and he still is showing us that Chuck Nasty still nasty. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, and thank you for checking us out on your favorite streaming service. What do you think about Charlie Blackmon and the Charlie Blackmon deal? Let me know in the comments below. We're going to continue to review the Rockies and continue to see what happens in the world of baseball, as the World Series is almost set as well. So we'll talk a little postseason baseball here on the show as well, but we'll be reviewing the Rockies here on Locked On Rockies and continuing to navigate this offseason together. Let me know what you want to hear on the show. Let me know what you want to hear me talk about by posting in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comments section. You can also let me know on Twitter at LO Rockies. And folks, for your second listen, if you need more baseball action, Locked On MLB has you covered. But if you need more Colorado sports action, including getting ready for Nuggets opening night, well, Locked On Podcast Network has you covered. Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs available to you as well. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.